So my last mock draft got a lot of positive feedback, a lot of negative feedback, because I spent 3 hours of my life doing a 7-round mock draft that I probably will not be doing again, only because he's sticking to the next 2 rounds for future drafts. And I'm like, I don't know yet. But with that being said though, this is my first round mock draft that leads into my 7-round mock draft. I will leave the PDF description of that in the description down below if you guys want to check that out for draft day. And when you guys are seeing this, the draft will be the next day. So have a fun draft, guys. Hopefully this draft caters to all your teams and all your team's needs, and I will gladly take all of the criticisms you guys send toward me, good, bad. And if you guys want to, tell me how bad I'm drafting, let me know, in the comment section down below. Like I said, stay subscribed to this channel. I hope you guys have a great draft, and I will stop talking so you guys can get into it to future me. So let's get into it. All right, so with the first overall pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, I have the Carolina Panthers selecting Bryce Young, quarterback out of Alabama. So nothing has changed from my first mock draft. I still consider Bryce Young the best quarterback in this class based on his it factor alone. Young has good arm strength, he's got good pocket presence, he's got great mobility. Combine that with the facts that the Panthers have figured out their first overall pick, we all know who it is. It's Bryce Young, okay? We all knew it from the beginning. We tried to throw Anthony Richardson, C.J. Stroud, and Will Levis into that. It didn't happen. We all knew it was Bryce Young. With the second overall pick, I am sticking with my guns here and going C.J. Stroud, quarterback out of Ohio State. Look, I know the rumor right now is that C.J. Stroud's test, whatever his pocket presence or reads test, whatever the hell they tested him for, was really bad and his score was really bad. I'm here to say I don't give a damn about those test scores. All right, I'm still taking C.J. Stroud for the Texans at 2. I know it's kind of been a trend recently in mocks to put an edge rusher for the second overall pick like Will Anderson Jr. or Tyree Wilson. But at the end of the day, the Texans have a quarterback issue and they need to fill that quarterback issue. And they have a guy like C.J. Stroud sitting here at 2. So the smart thing to do is take the guy who could be your starter for the next 10 years instead of waiting on a guy in the later rounds or later in the draft. It's like someone saying, here, do you want $100,000 or $1 later? And you take the $1 later. Like, come on now, let's not overthink this. So my first trade in this mock draft is kind of a simple trade. I'm going to be honest, recording this now, I think there is an option for a different trade here. I have the Colts trading up with the Cardinals to select Will Levis out of Kentucky. Now, in terms of specifics, I think this is too close for the Colts to just trade up into a 1 position higher. Frankly, I think the Cardinals will trade with someone past 5 or even maybe 7 to get more out of it, i.e. more draft picks and later rounds, and trade maybe not all the way out of the top 10, but definitely still in the top 10, just further back. Either way, I have Will Levis going 3rd overall. Look, I like Levis over Richardson just on the factor that they need someone to start now. Look, I'm not saying start right away, and you shouldn't start Will Levis right away. I think that when it comes to Richardson, I don't want him starting right away, and I feel like if the Colts get him, they're going to want to ease him in as quick as they can, and it's going to be a failure from the beginning. Look, Gardner Minshew is currently their starting quarterback, and I feel like he will start up in the first maybe 7 to 8 weeks at max. Look, Levis needs time as much as Anthony Richardson does, but I like Levis to start a little bit more games this year compared to Richardson. So when you see where he goes later, you're going to question what I just said, but either way, I like Levis to start some games this year rather than Richardson. So now I have the Arizona Cardinals on the clock with the 4th overall pick, and they make the simple choice here. Will Anderson Jr. out of Alabama is the pick. Look, he's the best pass rusher in this class, and their best pass rusher, J.J. Watt, just retired. They traded Zach Allen away to the Broncos, and they need that guy on the defense, and Will Anderson Jr. is that guy on that defense. The Cardinals have holes all over their roster, but they really need to fill the defensive end place, and that is how they fill it with Will Anderson Jr. This is another minor change from my first mock draft. I have the Seattle Seahawks selecting defensive tackle Jalen Carter out of Georgia. Look, I know he's got legal trouble when I said this in my first mock draft. I'm sure it is something that has just been really blown out of proportion. Look, am I condoning his misdemeanor? No, but I think it was a simple mistake. The Seahawks let go of Shelby Harris after he was brought over from the Russell Wilson trade, and now they have a hole at defensive tackle. Jalen Carter is the best defensive tackle when he is healthy, his mind is right, and he is a game changer on defense. The Seahawks cannot afford to pass up on a guy like this. So I have the Seattle Seahawks taking him at 5, which leaves the Detroit Lions at 6, taking edge Tyree Wilson of Texas Tech. I like pairing him with Aiden Hutchinson, same thing like in my old mock draft. I know they have James Houston, who they drafted last year with a very decent rookie year, but imagine having Tyree Wilson, Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston, Isaiah Buggs on the defensive line. It is honestly scary. It might be the best in the NFC North. So at the 7th overall pick, I know in my last mock draft, I said that the Raiders would not do the same thing that the 49ers did to Jimmy Garoppolo with Trey Lance, and I'm going to go against that, and I'm going to pick Anthony Richardson 7th overall as the Las Vegas Raiders. I know, the Raiders developing a quarterback, it is almost like a recipe for disaster here. But the thing is, Anthony Richardson needs time, just like I made that point before. He can sit behind Jimmy Garoppolo for 2 years, maybe a year or two, and I think he's ready to take over. Look, the thing about Jimmy, and I love Jimmy as a starter, but he's not a dynamic guy like Anthony Richardson. He doesn't have that it factor to him. You give Jimmy the starting role for 2 years, that's how long his contract is. You can let him write out his contract, and then he can go into free agency again. It gives Anthony Richardson time to develop and say, hey, you know what, I think I'm ready to go. You know, I'm up to speed with the NFL offense. I know this offense. I know what to do. I'm good to go. And it gives you that it factor quarterback that you need in that division. Look at Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and yes, Russell Wilson when he is fully healthy and good to go. They all have an it factor to them. So take your franchise guy here, develop him right, and make sure you do a good damn job because he is going to be your starter for the next few years and the future of your franchise. At 8th overall, I got a lot of slack for letting this guy slip as far as I let him slip in my last mock draft. I have Christian Gonzalez going to the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I know that they just traded for Jeff Okudah, but the idea of having Jeff Okudah, AJ Terrell, and Christian Gonzalez all in that quarterback room is incredibly scary. Why not make another move here and get a guy like Christian Gonzalez who can be the lockdown corner in this draft? So I'm taking the Falcons to take Gonzalez at 8. At 9, again, I'm sticking with my guns here. I'm taking the Bears to take Peter Skoronski, offensive tackle out of Northwestern. Like I said in my first mock draft, he's the most polished offensive tackle. He would probably play guard because of his arm length. Having that versatility as a rookie to come in and play a different position in the NFL is crucial, and I really like him to bolster up that Chicago Bears offensive line. So at the 10th overall pick, I have another trade for you guys. I have the Detroit Lions trading up with the Eagles, dropping back all the way to 18, so they get an absolute compensation haul on that. But the Detroit Lions trading up with the Eagles to get the number 10 overall pick and selecting Devon Witherspoon, cornerback out of Illinois. And I was extremely high on Devon Witherspoon in my last mock draft. He was the first corner I had coming off the board here. I'm still extremely high on Devon Witherspoon. Everything I said in that mock draft, I still feel about Devon Witherspoon. Obviously, the Lions need a corner, and they need someone who can be a lockdown guy to pair with Cam Sutton. And I do think that in terms of cornerback ability, I like Devon Witherspoon's play. I like his man coverage, I like his zone coverage. I like all of it. I think his ball hawking ability is very good. So I like the Lions trading up to get their guy at corner with Devon Witherspoon. The Tennessee Titans are next on the board, and this is a pretty basic pick. Again, sticking with my guns here, going Paris Johnson Jr. here on offensive tackle. Obviously, the Titans' offensive line is absolutely spent right now. Taylor Lewan, they let go last year. Paris Johnson Jr. is just a great prospect. He's that second best tackle in this class, and I love him. A Mike Vrabel-led offensive line, so I like this pick for the Tennessee Titans here. At 12, again, I'm going to stick with my guns here, and I got to take JSN for the Houston Texans here. And I know Texans fans are going to kill me on this one, but I have a surprise for you guys at the end of this video, so stay tuned for that, Texans fans. I mean, how can you pass up not drafting your college quarterback's favorite wide receiver in the last year? I know he dealt with that hamstring injury. I know he's not seen as the fastest guy, but he's the best receiver in this class. There's not a doubt in my mind about that. My thing is this: there's been so much success with pairing your college quarterback with his college wide receiver. So you need a wide receiver one, and Bobby Trees is already getting old. You know, he already is old at that point. He wasn't that great last year with the Titans. I think you get JSN to be that wide receiver one in Texas. Now, obviously, this was the Jets' original pick, and I did modify this with the Aaron Rodgers trade, so it actually fit him perfectly. So we're just going to put this ahead of Aaron, where the Jets were going to be drafting the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to take Quentin Johnson, wide receiver out of TCU. I think I heard on a podcast recently that, they were looking at Brian Branch. Brian Branch is still here at the safety position. And I just want Quentin Johnson because I feel like they need that wide receiver two in this offense. Christian Watson is a clear wide receiver one. He's the clear guy there. I think Quentin Johnson is a very interesting prospect because he doesn't play like a big body receiver. I mean, he struggles with 50-50 balls. He doesn't play like a big body receiver. He's very good with the yards after catch with the yak. He plays like a smaller receiver, but he's a big frame, big body, so it's tougher to get him to the ground. But, I like the fact that, the Packers could lean on for Jordan Love and get him another weapon that can get open, get the ball, and I know struggles with 50-50 balls and everything like that, but can learn to play like a big body receiver eventually in the NFL. With the 14th overall pick, I have a different selection for the New England Patriots. I got a lot of flack for giving Lucas Van Ness last year, and I will completely take that. So I'm giving them Deontay Banks, cornerback out of Maryland. Frankly, I didn't realize how bad the New England cornerback room was when I did my first original mock draft. So giving them Deontay Banks, who is the best corner still available in this class. I just feel like Belichick would like a guy like Deontay Banks to be in that cornerback room and just be either way. I like Deontay Banks out of Maryland as a Patriots player. He just seems like a Patriots player, if you know what I mean. And which means obviously up next we have the New York Jets picking at 15 because they just traded for Aaron Rodgers, and the pick stays the same whether or not the Aaron Rodgers trade. The Jets, I have selecting Darnell Wright, tackle out of Tennessee. Thinking about Darnell Wright and thinking about the Jets right now is their priority is gone from getting their defense, last year ready and good to go to protecting their franchise guy, and they got Aaron Rodgers now, so they got to protect the shit out of him because obviously last year we saw when he dealt with the finger injury, the rib injury, he didn't play up to an Aaron Rodgers caliber, and that's a various other factors as well. But that's part of the factors why the Green Bay Packers were not successful last year, compared to other years. Darnell Wright comes in. He's arguably a second, third, best tackle in this class. He shores up. He locked up Will Anderson Jr., Nolan Smith, Tyree Wilson. Darnell Wright is the guy to protect Aaron Rodgers on that blind side and just be up for protection. With the 16th overall pick here, I think it was very hard to pick for Washington just because they have not that many needs in the secondary, but it's not great either. So I haven't taken Brian Branch, safety out of Alabama. The thing I have Brian Branch going either top 15, top 16 is because of his, his Swiss Army knife-like ability on that defense. He can play safety, he can play nickel, he can play dime, he can play cornerback one, he can play in the slot. He can basically play anywhere. And the thing about Washington is their safety duo is okay. It definitely has room for improvement. So that's why I think I haven't taken Branch. Their cornerback room with Kendall Fuller is not bad, but I think it definitely also has room for improvement as well. When you have a defensive coach like Ron Rivera, I think he would love a guy that you could just move all around that secondary and play that utility role. With the 17th overall pick, I had the Steelers taking Joey Porter Jr. In my last mock draft. I am taking tackle Anton Harris out of Oklahoma. Obviously, their offensive line has been the problem for the last God knows how long, and they got Isaac Seumalo out of Eagles in free agency. Now I think they need to go for that tackle position. I think that was another position that they definitely need to upgrade on when I did research for them. Anton Harris out of Oklahoma is a very good tackle. I think he's a solid prospect, and I think he's a little bit underrated, so I like having him at 17 for the Steelers. At 18, the Eagles is now on the clock. Obviously, they had the Lions' former pick after the Lions traded up to 10, and I have the Eagles selecting Bijan Robinson out of Texas. I'm going around the mid-20s, 26, 27, 25 last draft, and I don't think he's going to go there now. The funny thing is as I'm recording this, like an hour ago, it released by ESPN that Bijan Robinson said he would want to play with Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense. So, I mean, this is just a match made in heaven here, guys. I know the Eagles are currently linked with the Derrick Henry trade, but I don't really think that's going to happen. It doesn't make sense. You'd have to give up a tremendous amount of draft stock for Derrick Henry. I don't think the Eagles will be able to get him if they could. I mean, things can change on draft day and everything like that. But if not, then they get the next best guy, Bijan Robinson, who was the best back out of the class. I don't need to say a lot about Bijan. I love everything about him, and I wish he can go to the Bills, but he can't go to the Bills because I don't think he's going to be there at 27. But the Eagles need a running back. Rashad Penny has not been healthy in every single season in the NFL. He hasn't played a lot of games. I like Bijan to take up that running back 1 role in Philly. With the 19th overall pick, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have a lot, kind of like the Cardinals in a way. I think they could trade back here, but I don't have them trading back. I am taking defensive lineman Kalijah Kancey out of Pitt. Now, I didn't realize how bad the Bucs defensive line was besides Vita Vea. Other than that, it's pretty shot according to PFF. And I like the idea of having a smaller guy like Kalijah Kancey who's powerful yet strong and fast, paired with a big guy like Vita Vea who's just pure power. Obviously, at 20 in my last draft by the Seattle Seahawks, taking Anthony Richardson. Here, I have them taking Joey Porter Jr., cornerback out of Penn State. Now, I know that they already have Kobe Bryant, Tariq Woolen, obviously, and Michael Jackson at cornerback, and I just like the idea of putting Joey Porter Jr. instead of Michael Jackson at that cornerback 3. Porter is a little bit handsy. He worries me on that aspect that he's handsy, he's grabbing. I think a lot of that will get called at the NFL level. But the same thing for Gonzalez. Imagine having them 3 in the secondary in that cornerback room. I think that the Seahawks can just add to their secondary already with Jamal Adams fully healthy. So why not add a guy like Joey Porter Jr. who could really help that defense out, especially in a division where you have great wide receivers in Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Cooper Kupp, and the list goes on. Now, I think this one's going to be very controversial for Chargers fans here. I have them taking Broderick Jones, tackle out of Georgia. The last 2 years, the Chargers have invested in Justin Herbert's protection on the O-line. I think they go the same route here with the tackle Broderick Jones out of Georgia, who was a 2-time national championship with the Bulldogs. I know a lot of them want to go wide receiver here, but I think they're just going to stick with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I don't really think it's a need right now. You have 2 guys who, yes, can't stay healthy at the same time, but are very good wide receivers in the NFL, so I don't think they're going to pick a wide receiver here. I think you just invest heavily in that O-line, and that O-line kind of fell apart last year. It kind of showed a little bit of regression. Obviously, Rashawn Slater was out for the year last year, so that didn't help. So why not get a guy like Broderick Jones to kind of shore up that offensive line? Now, this segment of the draft is where things get interesting. There's not a trade here or anything, but I have the Baltimore Ravens at 22 selecting wide receiver Zay Flowers out of Boston College. Look, I know that the Ravens got OBJ. He's on a 1-year deal. Might have been an overpay, but I think you need one more wide receiver to keep Lamar happy if he's going to play next year. Get a guy like Zay Flowers, who was dynamic, who had very bad quarterback play in college and still put up the numbers he did, was still elite with Boston College. Was crazy, arguably is the second best receiver in this class. I love Zay Flowers out of Boston College. I love the weight he's gained. He's gained a lot of muscle. He's very fast at the combine. A very good pro day. Like Zay Flowers. Enough said about him. I think the Ravens should pick him up at 22. I'm feeling Vikings fans are going to kill me for this one, but at 23, we have Jordan Addison, wide receiver out of USC, going to the Vikings here. Now that I've given everyone time to breathe and pause the video and be like, what the fuck? Look, Jordan Addison out of USC was arguably the second, third best receiver in this class come about 2 months ago. Obviously, his combine and his pro day didn't really show that. but I like pairing him with Justin Jefferson just on the fact that they've just lost Adam Thielen, who was a good wide receiver too. I know KJ Osborne is probably going to fill that role here, but why not get a guy like Jordan Addison who could be a field stretcher? You know, I know Justin Jefferson is more of a mid-range to rather than long-range sort of pass catcher. KJ Osborne is definitely that pass catcher who stretches the field. So why not get another guy in that offense like Jordan Addison to help Kirk Cousins out, or was going to be the starter after this year or in 2024 when Kirk Cousins is out of a deal, stuff like that. So I like Jordan Addison going to the Vikings. I would just have a hunch. He just feels like a Vikings player, if you know what I mean. So here starts the back-to-back trade. So the first trade is I have the Cowboys trading up to 24 with the Jaguars trading back, and I had them selecting Dalton Kincaid out of Utah. I know trading up in the first round for a tight end doesn't seem very likely, but I like Dalton Kincaid going to the Cowboys just because they lost Dalton Schultz, and I feel like he can be another good weapon in the dynamic pass catching group with CD Lamb, Michael Gallup, Brandon Cooks, and imagine adding Dalton Kincaid to that tight end room. Oh my god, I mean, Dak would have a field day with him, you know what I mean? Kincaid is the best, tight end in this class. He's great at receiving, great at getting open. He's not very good blocker, but he's a great pass catching weapon. And I'm sure Dak Prescott loves to throw his checkdowns to his tight ends. So why not throw a check down to a guy like Dalton Kincaid, who is athletic and arguably could be the next Travis Kelce? My next trade, Texans fans crucified me in the last video for not giving them an edge rusher. I had them trading up with the Giants. The Giants will trade into the first selection of the second round to select Nolan Smith, pass rusher out of Georgia. Look, Nolan Smith going in the top 10 was once a possibility after his combine and his pro day. I don't know if he's going to go top 10 anymore just on based off what I picked so far, but I like Nolan Smith going to the Texans. DeMeco Ryan. So now he gets his guy on the defensive side, his Nick Bosa and Nolan Smith, who is an athletic freak. I don't think enough said about his pro day. Look, Nolan Smith is a great pass rusher. He's a powerful pass rusher. He's a fast passer. If you want to just go see his pro day, that says it all right? So yeah, I have the Texans trending up to get Nolan Smith in the first round. Obviously, the Jaguars are back at 26 now. I have them beating up their offensive line with O'Cyrus Torrence. He was the best guard out of this class. He didn't allow a sack at Florida, and I really like him. I know he's kind of been struggling at the pro days and at the combine, stuff like that. A lot of questions have been saying about his NFL readiness, but I like O'Cyrus Torrence to beef up that offensive line for the Jags and just be that guy to protect Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, my Buffalo Bills are up next at 27, and I have them selecting Brian Brzee, defensive lineman out of Clemson. Now, I'm well aware Jack Campbell is the middle linebacker dream pick for all of us Bills fans, but I like Brian Brzee just because of all of our defensive lineman depth is going to be gone in 2024 in terms of they're all going to be free agents. I feel like they need another guy besides Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver to kind of put in the rotation to beef up that pass rush to allow guys like Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, and whoever's going to be the other pass rusher, whether it's Boogie Basham or when Von Miller's back healthy, because I don't think he's going to start the season because of his ACL tear. Just free up the pressure. Allow those guys to get pressure and get pressure on the quarterback, close the pocket, allow the pass rushers to do their job, and just help the defensive line and defensive pass rush out. The Bengals are up next at 28, and I have them taking Lucas Van Ness, edge rusher out of Iowa. Now, I know he didn't start a lot of games at Iowa, but, in terms of edge rushers, I know the Bengals have Trey Hendrickson. You can't have enough edge rushers in the AFC conference. Van Ness is seen as more of a project as well, and I think he could definitely learn under a veteran guy like Trey Hendrickson, arguably take his place when Trey Hendrickson either leaves in free agency. I think something that the Bengals definitely need right now. And my final trade for this mock draft, I have the Kansas City Chiefs trading up to 29 with the Saints. The Saints drop back to 31. I have them selecting Myles Murphy, edge out of Clemson. Look, I know Myles Murphy's kind of got a lot of slack recently. He has definitely dropped in terms of when the first mock draft started coming out. He was a top 10 pick at one point. He's no longer a top 10 pick at one. So I like Myles Murphy to just replace that Frank Clark filled hole in that Chiefs defensive end room. I think Myles Murphy is athletic. I think he's good. I think he's fast and powerful. He's a great edge rusher at Clemson. And I like him to be that Frank Clark replacement for the Kansas City Chiefs and Super Bowl champs. The Eagles are back on the clock with the 30th overall pick. I have them taking cornerback Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State here. Obviously, Slay and Bradbury are up there in age. Slay is definitely up there in age. Bradbury is getting towards the peak, middle age of his career. So I like him taking Emmanuel Forbes just under a guy like Slay, a guy like James Bradbury, who have been all-pro last year, a great cornerback duo, and I like taking Emmanuel Forbes out of Mississippi State to be that kind of replacement for Slay, that depth piece for Slay, just to add to that cornerback room that was already stacked at that point. In my final pick in my 2023 mock draft, the final one, the Saints have picking Steve Aviala, guard out of TCU. Now, I know I got a lot of slack because they got Trevor Penning last year. I like them taking Steve Aviala. I think he's a very good guard. I just like the idea of them beefing their offensive line right now. I feel like the Saints offensive line is good, but it can be better. They have pieces they can upgrade, and guard is 100% one of those positions. So take Steve Aviala out of TCU, who just won the national championship, who's a very good guard, arguably a day 2 pick. but I like the Saints picking him at the end of the first round. So like I said earlier, that is my last mock draft of the season. It was a lot of fun, even though it was a 7-round mock draft. Obviously, you guys only saw the first round. Like I said in the description down below, check out my full 7-round mock draft. And yeah, I think that does it for me. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.